This is episode 41 of the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about returning to training after an illness, mapping out your season and which races you want to get up for, race fueling, what do you take during your race and during training, little touch on what shoes to wear for a high rocks and during training and other hybrid fitness events, as well as the state of the podcast, where we're at, where we're going, and what's coming up. Let's make hybrid fitness work for you. How you doing today, JK?
Mr. Anthony, I'm well. How are you?
I am good. Just getting hyped, ready to be excited
Ready
on
to
a
rumble?
podcast.
Mate, just before we start, I had a really good day of training yesterday because Georgie was at the gym that I was training at.
So refer back to our episode on the
Yep.
observer effect, right?
She walked in and I was on my ski thresholds. I was like, you know what? Better pick this up.
That's fantastic.
It's so true. It is so true.
You go a little harder when she's there watching you, right?
That's right.
That's awesome. I'm just going to go over real fast our roadmap for today, what we're doing. We're going to talk about illness and returning to training because it seems it's hit so many people recently.
Yeah.
Preparing for a season and peaking for certain races. We had a listener submitted question we're going to go over. We're going to talk about JK, what do you eat? Intra-race, how do you fuel? I have a little thing I want to go over on workouts versus running versus strength. And then I threw this in here. JK doesn't even know. What are the best shoes for high rocks? We are not shoe people. Oh, I'm not a shoe person. So
No, I'm not either.
if you really want the answer to that question, the next time the women are on, you should ask Lauren. But we're going to just give a little opinion on it. We're going to talk about the future of the podcast. Something happened. We'll let you know. And then I wanted to read a couple comments and reviews. There's a few more items on here I don't think we're going to get to today, so we'll save those for later. First thing though.
Awesome.
JK, we were talking about it last few episodes, and then last episode it came up. Obviously, Lauren and I got really sick after the Vegas race. Just there's a bug going around. Our community group chat decided to call it the Vegas Venue Virus 2025, so VVV 25. I believe Marcus Wallace coined that term. So we caught it. It was bad enough that we ended up skipping that Black Canyon 100K race that Lauren was going to run, which is unfortunate because I know how much she was looking forward to that. It was a big training block and we were pretty excited for it. So it's really unfortunate that one had to get missed, but we are looking into other ultras that also fit around the season. It's just really hard. That one was almost perfectly placed for this season. So it just might be a little bit, but we will revisit it at some point.
Yeah.
But it sounds like talking to some people, a lot of people actually got that VVV 25. And then JK, you had a little like weird thing happen after you flew back from America to Australia. We thought you caught something.
Yeah.
That leads us though into like when you have an illness, when you have something like that happen, what do you do and how do you get back to your training after a race and after an illness?
Yeah, which is so common, right? And I think not only the Vegas race, I think it would be so common after any High Rocks event. If you think about it, there's thousands of people in an arena. You're sweating. Well, first of all, you're sweating and you're producing a lot of like liquids and all the rest of it. But on top of that, like just because of the amount of people, like there's bound to be bugs like there, right? Um Going back to like my my last week since I've been back to Australia. I felt fine like the day I landed, and Georgie and I went for a run and went to the gym. But it was the second day that I just totally, um, I feel like my body just like totally stopped on me, or I had shivers and like the whole aches and body aches and whatnot. So I actually thought I came down with that virus that you were talking about. Lo and behold, it was literally a 24-hour thing. I literally slept for 24 hours. Now, this is where because I slept for 24 hours, I feel like my body was able to, um, I guess, pass it and and get rid of it, and ultimately woke up the next day feeling fine. But the only reason why I woke up the next day feeling fine was because I allowed my body to rest, and I just slept that whole day, um, to then be able to rebound afterwards. So yeah, like it's a tough one because we all like want to like and obviously love to train. And Anthony, by our communication when I was sick that day, um I was probably annoying and nagging you to a point where that was all to do with just not wanting to miss my day of training, right? But the only thing you can do is rest. The only thing you can do is rest. And I'm assuming Lauren and yourself were pretty much the same last week. Is that correct?
So for me, um, obviously I was also very sore and like DOMS and tired after our doubles race. And
Yeah.
so my voice was already gone from yelling over the weekend. And so I couldn't really tell how sick I was or if I was sick, right? More likely than not, I had COVID because that's what Lauren tested positive for. So more likely than not, I also had it. But I ended up running the Monday after uh, the Las Vegas race. And that was the only workout movement I did that whole week. I ran about
Yeah.
3.5 miles that Monday, and then I didn't work out from Tuesday to Sunday, which is probably more days in a row than I've ever not worked out.
Yeah.
Uh, it was probably compounding from a lot of things. I would go like on like a walk or something and have some kind of movement, but literally just like I was tired, defeated, like exhausted. So the idea of working out was really difficult. However, Monday rolled around and I was able to start getting back into it. And actually, my easy run that following Monday, which was this Monday, ended up being the fastest easy run I've done on the route that I usually do my easy runs.
Mm.
Um, So I was like really interested in that is why did it come back faster? It's not like I meant to. I just stayed calm, right? Um,
Yeah.
Resting heart rate over that time was also elevated. So you get like you can see in your if you're using your biosensors, your metrics, like you're like, oh hey, I'm definitely sick.
Yeah.
All right, how you do it. But yeah, resting and taking it easy. If you do work out, just go light, like 30. If you're used to doing an hour run, doing like 30 minutes of just spinning your legs on the bike, something that creates a minimal heart rate response is okay. Um, but if you try to add a massive amount of intensity or something, you're either just going to be disappointed or end up with a massive coughing fit, something that, could have happened. I don't know how many of you guys out there follow Dylan Scott's stories, but he's also been very sick. Um, and he's posted a lot about it. So just his journey and when he'll do a long workout with some intensity in it, he lays down as long as the workout was coughing afterwards. So I mean, I guess
Right,
it's
right.
core bracing, so it's core work if you want.
Yeah, yeah. But I've learnt this from you with regards to like training. our body like only knows stress, right? And like our body only knows stress or no stress. And when our body is fighting a sickness, we're we're fighting stress. We're fighting something that is like stressful.
Right.
So why,
So
yeah, you
exactly,
go.
I mean, boiled down very, very simply, there's a lot more to it than just that, but like, in terms of, you can't just boil down nutrition to calories in, calories out, but if you got to start somewhere, that's a good place to start. The
Yeah,
same thing kind of with stress, right? Your body is not going to tell the difference between physical stress, mental stress, all these different stresses. So
yeah,
stress is stress. Uh, when you're sick, you're under a lot of stress in your body
yeah,
already. So adding more workouts to it is just adding additional stress, adding your everyday life
yeah,
stress, adding work stress, mental stress, emotional stress. All that is just compounding more so than what you're already under. So you're exponentially increasing the amount of work your body's doing, right? So the main things you want to focus on when you're sick and coming back, get rest, and not just rest, like obviously sleep is one of the most important things, but recovery. We talk about a lot about recovery here, right? Like you can only, because we do high volume, you can only do the amount of volume, the amount of work that you can recover from, right? So you're limited
yeah,
in work by recovery. Same way is that if you're not recovering when you're sick, you got to add that to your work, the stress of being sick to the work you're doing. So you can't just do your full volume on top of that because that's adding stress without the recovery.
yeah,
So two main things: get lots of sleep, get your lots of rest, reduce your life stresses, and actually, I prefer usually eat more. Uh, your body needs
yeah,
to repair, it needs that fuel. So get the food in, especially if like you're experiencing dehydration and like gastric distress, you need to replenish that, right? Because you're obviously not
yeah,
absorbing the nutrients that you need. So you got to make sure you get that fuel in. So
yeah.
definitely reduce your stress, get more sleep, eat more food.
Eat more food. And it was funny on that topic. I woke up from my day of sleeping, and uh, Georgie was making dinner, and all I wanted was I was craving salt for some reason, meaning I was very dehydrated. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that whole food, and if you think about it, like I try to re recovery is different for everyone, but I think for most, I think you need to make sure you understand that sleep is the number one um, helper or um, thing that will allow you to recover. And on top of that is the things that you put in your body that will allow you to recover as well. So fuel and hydration, um, and listening to that as well, which is important. So yeah, um, and then making sure like when you do come back to training, don't don't go don't go back into like intensity straight away, right? It's more about like making sure that you're finding your feet again, and then slowly coming back into um, potentially some aerobic work to then find your feet into some intensity. But I think Anthony, like the that depends on where like the individual, and it depends on how sick you are as well.
Yeah, and I would also say when you come back, don't just, okay, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna go do everything that I was doing right before. Um, it can be a ramp back into your load, a ramp back up
Yeah,
into your volume. Now, doesn't have to be as slow of a ramp as it was, getting to that place, but it's got to be, maybe over a couple days. And that depends on the amount of volume you're doing too. But just remember, unless you're sick for a very extended amount of time, 2 weeks, 3, 4 weeks, like the 3, 4, 5 days, maybe one week that you are sick, you're if you're losing any sort of fitness, you're not really losing much, uh, if any. So just let yourself get back into it slowly. You know, your body still experienced stress while you were not working out as hard. So get back into your workouts. Start out, if you're used to doing a 60 to 90-minute run or something, then maybe your first day back, you only do 45, 50 minutes. You
Yeah,
don't like try to do the whole thing. Like let your body move, like you said, aerobically. Let yourself feel what it feels like to get back into it. And over like a 3 or 4 day period, uh, just ramp in back that way. You could even ramp in the same duration that you were sick for. So if you're sick for 5 days before you start moving, use that time to ramp back into it. Don't just like, all right, hitting everything at once, boom.
yeah, yeah.
So we had a listener submit a question about, I'm not going to say who just because I didn't ask them if I could say their name, but they were asking about preparing for a season and peaking for certain races. I'm going to read the question exactly just so I can talk about it. And then I have a couple things we can move on from there. So, hey, AP, hope all is well. Thought it could be an interesting podcast topic to talk about with JK and athletes more broadly about how you prep for a season and peak for certain races. After Vegas, I thought JK may have sat Glasgow out to avoid the travel and get a few uninterrupted blocks in before Worlds. Would be great to hear your insight into how you prepare for the season. What races you choose and why, and things of that nature. Was it ever a consideration for JK to miss any of the majors dependent on results? That might be confidential information, so all good if you don't share. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to know the thought process behind prepping for a season. So I got this question submitted to us, and before I dive into it, the one thing I do want to say about it is that they asked, how do you prepare for the season and what races you choose and why and all those things? Well,
Mm.
to start with, Hyrox kind of chooses the races you're going to do, right?
Yeah,
I went back and
yeah,
looked. There are two people that have not missed a single major or world championship event. That means they went to Chicago, they went to Stockholm, they went to Vienna and Washington D.C. and Nice, and then Amsterdam, Hong Kong, and Las Vegas so far. Right, so that's
mm.
8 races. Those two people are JK and my wife Lauren Weeks.
There you go.
They're the
Wow.
only ones that have been to every single one of those events. Those are the biggest
Yeah,
races that Hyrox has announced, and they always show up, right?
mm.
So
Yeah,
those two things kind of dictate which races we're going to choose. There are other races that are like, oh, we're going to look at it, right? Like, for example, JK, over the summer, you did some races that were local to you. The reason you did those is because they were good practice. It's very good to go out there and remember what it feels like to win, right? Remember what it feels
yeah,
like to lead a race, to do the pro race, and they're close to you. So you can go out there and like interact with the community because community is such a big part of everything we do here,
yeah,
especially in high rocks, especially in hybrid fitness, and with both of our training and coaching platforms. Like community is, I don't think you disagree. It's number one.
yeah. Correct.
So
I just on that though, like from my end, and I'm only talking from my end is like I started a sport and was able to find myself in and around the Elite 15 fairly early, and due to that, I'm taking every opportunity that I can to race the best. That's the reason why I have said yes to every major. Um, in my eyes as well, it's not as if it's me saying yes. It's like if I'm mentally well, meaning I'm training well, I've got the urge of I'm hungry to get after it, and I'm physically fine, physically going well. I'm saying yes to racing these majors, meaning there's no other option. Like that's how I view it. Yes. I understand that sport's sport, like things can happen and touch wood, like I'm not saying that I'll never miss one because things do happen, but I'm out here to try and race the best and to try and be in and amongst the best as much as possible because that's how I'm going to become the best athlete that I can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So going on to other parts of this question too, my initial like thought on this was, well, because they asked about like, well, what if you get some uninterrupted blocks in before Worlds? And I was just thinking like, how do you know that's not what we're doing? You know, like
Yeah,
you can throw a race into a training block and it's just a training block race, which is
yeah,
something we've discussed and talked about is, we primarily train for general fitness and have you prepared to run at any time, really. But when we want you to be at your best running, that's when we'll put a specific block before um like Worlds. Like before Worlds, you and I've already discussed, like there is, what is it, 6 weeks that it's like, all right, now you need to take everything you've done and we're gonna hone in, you know.
yeah,
Um, I'd say as much as we have touched on things before each of these majors, none of them have been that exact that we're going to do before Worlds. Um, and I think
yeah,
about it, you only get swings like that maybe 3 times a year. And you have, if
mm,
you go to every major and Worlds, that's five that you would have to do. So not every major is going to be like that. Some of the majors, just for example, is a test. Like, hey, how does this type of travel affect me? And what does it do to what I'm doing?
yeah,
How does this strategy in the race, what does that do uh, against this field? Uh,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you want to test and learn things on races that are not the biggest one of the year. Uh,
yeah, yeah. And
so
I think like I think like the way we train, um, I definitely do peak for these races, but because we train for broad, varied fitness, as you said, Anthony, like I feel like I can jump into most races and do very well. Um, I don't need these big steep peaks because my base is very big in the first place. Would that be the right terminology?
yeah, also remember earlier episodes we talked about it's not necessarily a peak that we're doing. We're just getting up to the next plateau because we want to increase and then get there. And so we need to have that increase line up when you're at your best fitness with when you're going to
Exactly.
perform.
Yeah.
And then we take time after that to accumulate all that fitness and absorb it into your body. So
Yeah.
not necessarily a peak, more of a stair step where we're getting
Yeah.
to
Yeah. I
our
like
next
that.
level.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, Additionally, with that, I was just thinking that yes, we do like you take 3 weeks out from most of these majors, and it's like, okay, we're got to practice these movements specifically again. We do not. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and they told me that some of the other programs they've seen, the people just hit the exact high rocks movements over and over and over and over again in different ways, and I was like, well, that's not really what we do. I mean, we do dumbbell snatches, barbell thrusters, power cleans, bent over rows. We do so much other stuff with it to get you prepared for any movement that's going to be anywhere. Not just high rocks, but any hybrid race or fitness in general to level you up, right?
Yeah. And but like on that, right? Just take a example like the barbell thruster. Um, Obviously that is enhancing a lot of um different components of high rock stations, right? And also even like a workout where you're adding in something like a hinge, a squat, and a jump, all three combined. Tell me, like, how isn't that helping your plyometric explosiveness for the burpee broad jumps, your wall ball stamina at the end of the race, and so on and so forth. So because of the program being so, or the way we train Anthony to being so varied, I think the word, and I remember you talking to me about this in particular very early on, um, when we first started together. Because our training is so varied, we can stack volume that like and due to that we can create this big broad base, right? I know why you're laughing because it's our anniversary tomorrow.
Oh yeah, it
Is
is.
that why you're laughing?
No, I was just smiling about what you were saying. I like it when you repeat, do
Because
callbacks and repeat them.
yeah, I
But
remember you like I remember that particular sorry, just quickly, I remember that particular uh conversation we had very early on, like about like how varied our training will be.
yeah, that's exactly it. One of the things I also wanted to add to that is that so I went back and watched the Cologne race earlier today. I was running my thresholds and I threw on the Cologne race. It was awesome to watch, but it brought back some memories. And it made me realize, like looking at the other people running it, you just ran the brakes off of everybody else there. Like I remember hearing
Yeah,
like, oh, Cologne was fast, and looking at the times compared to like other courses and stuff, especially like a recent course like Maastricht, like no, it wasn't. You just had your like peak day. And I remember going into that race, we kind of had this idea that, hey, JK, the number one thing we need to do is we can't save anything for Worlds right now because you have to get there. So we need to take a shot here and not worry about what happens afterwards because you didn't want to
yeah,
go to Anaheim last year. You wanted to get it in Cologne uh, to give yourself the best shot. And so we took one of those, you only get a few shots a year. We knew it was close to Worlds, but you had to take it because otherwise there is no Worlds unless you take that shot. And
mm,
man, you went out, you executed perfectly. And I remember looking at the training after that, watching that race back, and I was like, man, he really hit this exactly the way we had planned and the way we had gone about it. And you won that race by like 3 minutes, and people were just dying out at the end. Um,
yeah,
the only person that like recovered and came back seemed to be Joffrey. But that's because he had to
yeah,
go 100 wall balls unbroken. And he
yeah.
paced
That's right.
himself from early on, but still finished 3 minutes back, you guys. And so looking at it too, like I realized you were 54:03 or 54:06 in that course. I'd forgot you got a burpee penalty where they brought you back 5 meters.
Yeah,
That right there's like
yeah,
15 seconds at least, you know?
yeah. I
So
think so. Yeah,
I mean, you could have been under 54.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That feels like a lifetime ago now, actually.
right?
Um, yeah. Do you think the build, like, just on for the listeners, and I'm okay for it to be like our builds every race are different but very similar. Would like
Yeah.
that would that be correct to say? Um,
Oh, absolutely. No, none of them are the exact same because first off, just the build itself, but the taper into the race is never the exact same because you
uh,
have to look at, okay, during this section of training, when was the last point you did intensity? And we have to like gauge off of that. And then what was that intensity? Which piece of your fitness that we've built was that intensity? And
yeah,
what do we have to do intensity wise in the last 10 days, in the last 5 days, right? To get you ready for the race. So similar, but never the same.
Mm.
And then,
Yeah.
so if you remember, like you took a big swing there, and then we had to like almost reset after that because of how hard you went, right? We took a reset, and you had your spot at Worlds now, and then we built up, and we'd spent what 6 or 7 weeks building to Cologne, and then really
Mm.
like you took a reset and a little aerobic rebuild, and then we built up for Worlds where
Yeah.
you
Right.
had your great result at Worlds, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really think that you you had great opportunity. We didn't do the same thing going from Cologne that we did going into Worlds, but had a big growth there. And then over the summer, we saw you be able to accumulate that growth into multiple races for confidence, which included Brisbane and Sydney, right? Brisbane and Sydney.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
we had our major at Amsterdam, where it was like, okay, now you get to race these same guys you raced from Worlds. Um, you had a great race against Ronkovic, kind of the similar thing, but you could see like, oh, hey, JK developed from
Mm.
Worlds even to Amsterdam, and then you had Hong Kong where you won, and then you had Vegas.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously
Yep.
Vegas was a little different, right? And I don't think
Yeah.
you did poorly in Vegas. I just think it was different tactically, travel wise. Like you're not going to come over to Chicago 10 days before. So
No.
yeah, we'll be ready. I think
Yeah.
as far as the travel goes, that's something that you have to get used to. You know, you're on the bottom back side of the world right now, or
Yeah.
depending
Yeah.
on, I
That's
guess those
right.
Australian maps have you guys at the top, right? With south pointing
Yeah. That's
up.
right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. But to go back to the question, I, yeah, it's a hard one because for me personally, I want to race. I train to race. I don't, I guess, like, I don't race to train, which is understandable, but like, that's why I want to say yes to all these majors, right?
yeah. Uh,
And it's, yeah,
so yeah, like you said, getting back to the question, they asked about how do you prep for a season and then peak for certain races, and really like for you
yeah,
and anybody out there that they can do this too is pick the races that you're going to race, you know. You
yeah,
want to be ready for each one, but you train for the general fitness of life, health and athleticism, you know. And then when the race comes, you get prepared for the race. You're in that natural
yeah,
spot, JK, where you already are told, hey, you have these four majors that you are going to race. Okay.
yeah,
So, like, you have that luxury. Somebody else that's maybe somebody that's trying to get into the Elite 15, a bubble athlete or something, they kind of got to go
mm,
out and be like, how many races can I get to? Because that's going to matter. Right. And then they can
yeah,
project after a few of those happen, they can see what they need to do next.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope we answered the question there. Before we move on, I want to say that I don't know if you guys celebrate this in Australia. It's from when we're recording, this is tomorrow. You're actually already on Friday, but February 14th is Valentine's Day. So
It is
I'm going to give a
Valentine's
shout
Day.
out to my Valentine. I love you, Lauren. So
Is it Valentine's Day? No, it's Valentine's Day for us now.
February
But
14th
it's the 13th for you right now.
is the 13th for me right now. But when this comes out to the world, it'll be the 14th for me. So
Yeah. Happy Valentine's Day.
So
Um,
just give a shout out to them. We appreciate our significant others.
yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of, everybody else appears to have appreciated the significant others. I was going to save this for later, but the women's episode now has the highest listened and watched total out of all of our
Wow.
episodes.
Is
So
that right?
yeah, they surpassed us. So I guess we're going to have to find
We'll definitely have to get them
time,
back on.
yeah, for them to get back on. So if everybody has questions or comments they want, we will let you know the next time the women are available
Yep.
to do one of these, and we'll get it out there for you. The
Yep.
people have
Definitely.
spoken.
They have indeed. Yeah. So it's past our threshold session. Not session.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
They've reached their goal. They're
Mhm.
nearly at 2,000 listens and views combined.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
We'll have to get them on again.
uh, all right. So, real quick, JK, one thing we wanted to talk about was your intra-race fueling. We talked a little bit about this before, but fueling mid-race or fueling during your sessions, what's your go-to? Do you have a gel or something that's your
Yeah,
go-to?
I use the Morton gels. Um, Maurten, Morton gels, and also they actually have a really good carbohydrate mix as well. You can get them on thefeed.com. I've always taken Morton, and the reason is because that um, I've my body has been able to um, my body can like handle the gel itself, right? I've taken multiple other gels in the past where my stomach doesn't handle it. So the Morton gels, it's pretty much just 40 grams of carbohydrates per gel. And I always take one in the middle of the race. However, that can change from the run into the sled pull or the run into the burpees or even the run after the burpees. So it depends on when I'm actually feeling the need to actually just go, okay, let's get a a little bit of a boost. But yeah, I find them the best. They're very jelly. They're very jelly soul gels, but they go down a treat for me. And they do have a really good mix. Now, in my training sessions, like just an example, my threshold sessions on the treadmill, I always have the carbohydrate Morton mix. Um, and I always have that like in the middle of my treadmill threshold sessions as well. So um, that's my go-to. Yeah.
So
Um,
you talked about they have 40 grams of carbs, right? And you're
Correct. Yep.
finishing this in about 50 minutes. So that's probably about appropriate for you. Maybe if somebody really wants to, they can carry two. If you guys are finishing High Rocks or any other race in about an hour and a half, then you're probably more appropriate having two of those gels with you and taking two on course rather than
Yep.
just the one. And you said you also have a carbohydrate mix that you'll run with now too. So you take the
Yep.
gel plus the carbohydrate mix, you're getting more than that 40, which is super important. And one other thing that JK mentioned there, everybody, is that they're very jelly. So you need to find a gel that works for you. I think it's very important the first time you take a gel is not in the middle of your race. You should be taking it
Correct.
during a training session, understand like how you react to it and if you can take it down because so many people, myself included, JK, like you cannot, there are certain gels where you just can't take them down. And
No.
if you happen to
No.
put one of those in your mouth in the middle of the race, you're going to have to stop, like wash your mouth out, start gagging. So for you, those Morton gels work. And I encourage anybody to sample them. I believe at thefeed.com, you guys can buy samples, buy a
Yeah.
single serving or something that you want to try out. So you can try multiple brands of gels and find the one that works for you during your training sessions. Super
Yep.
important. And you shouldn't just be taking fuel during the race. You should take it during your training sessions. That's during certain ones. About the
Yep.
same amount that you're going to take, understand how your body reacts to it, understand what you're doing to yourself when you take these gels that are obviously processed, not direct food, right? So how do you handle it in that way?
Yep. Exactly. So check them out on thefeed.com. They've got obviously the Morton gels and the mix, but they've got a whole wide range of endurance supplementation at your doorstep. So yeah, I highly recommend the Morton gels though.
Cool. All right. I'm gonna skip this next one, but let's talk about the best shoes. What have you found, JK? What are you running in a High Rocks these days? And what are
Shoes.
you running in your everyday training? And what are you running in another event?
Yeah. Interesting. Like I run my races in the Puma DB8 Nitro Elite Threes. And I have for the last 4 or 5 races. Now that doesn't mean I um train in them though. I train in a couple of different shoes. I actually train in the Hoka Max Sixes, which I really enjoy um, training in them. And just for the listeners, right? Why do I change up my training shoe versus my race shoe? Well, my race shoe is my race shoe, and mentally, it's probably a placebo effect thing. But I want to get my race shoe out only on race day to feel as if I'm ready to go mentally, and I'm only putting these on for the race and for the race only. I also train in the DV8 Nitros. So not the Elite Threes, but the Puma DV8 Nitros as well. So I've got a couple that I kind of swap and change in training. Um, but I guess like to go back to it, um, this is an interesting topic, right? Because I get asked this question a lot. Best best shoes for high rocks and what I train in or what I race in. At the end of the day, um, for the listener, you have to work that out yourself by trial and error. And I've only worked out what I'm like able to race in because I've trialed other shoes and I enjoy the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite Threes right now. Um, so yeah, so it's an interesting one, Anthony, because I'm sure you get that a lot, or you get asked, but like everyone's different, right? You've got to work it out yourself by trial and error.
Yep. Um, exactly. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of different shoes that people wear, and I can tell you for sure that I am not the shoe person. Um, like for the longest time, you know what? In college, I was given a pair of Nike Pegasus, and that's what I ran in
Yeah,
forever. And I went well past 500 miles in them, to the point that they would fall apart. And then I'd buy a new pair, and I was like, oh, I feel better and faster now that I have a new pair of shoes, right? As
yeah.
you get older, when you get a new pair of shoes, people don't ask you how fast you can run in them, which that's disappointing. I wish everybody said, well, how fast can you run in your new pair of shoes? That was always cool as a kid.
Yeah,
Uh, but one of the things that you want to do is definitely choose your shoes. And you can have different shoes for different races. You can have race shoes, you can have training shoes. Just for example, I wear the Hoka Clifton nines for most of my training runs, especially my easy ones. And then for the races I've ran, I do the Saucony Endorphin Pro threes. And
yeah,
sometimes, like, we'll get into this a little bit. Do you want to wear super shoes while you're training?
yeah,
And you absolutely can, especially if you're trying to reduce the impact because we do a lot of impact, right? So if you want to be able to race better or you want to be able to train better the following days, maybe training in super shoes is a good idea. Uh, but you got to look into
yeah,
that. So more recently, like I've been running some of my thresholds in my old Saucony Endorphin Pro 3s.
yeah,
But there's a lot of shoes out there that people can wear for high rocks. There's also a lot of shoes out there that you can wear for various things. Like I don't lift in my running shoes. Um, I'll
no,
go lift in my old Nano twos, right?
yeah,
And I'm sure I have a pair of lifting shoes as well for squatting and my Olympic lifts.
yeah.
Get the right shoe for the job. There's a right shoe for every job, so make sure you have the correct one.
So going back to the whole concept of shoes and the carbon plate at the moment. Like it's obviously a hot topic, right? In your opinion, Anthony, and like again, it's my opinion as well. Um, do you believe it's beneficial somewhat to train in carbon plate and also racing carbon plate? Or do you think there's benefit on not training carbon plate and just leaving it for race day?
No, I believe there's benefit to training and racing in it. Um, I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of good that can come out of it. But you also need to be, there's a lot of like science going either way, right? So maybe the jury's out. There's some people that absolutely you do not run and train in your carbon plates. And then there's some that are like, well, you only train in carbon plates, everything. So the answer is probably somewhere in the middle there, um, more
Yep.
likely than not. But, depending on what the volume of running you do, probably plays a role into it, or what your impact
Yeah.
load is, and how responsive are those carbon plates after you've run a high rocks or another hybrid event where, what happens to the carbon plate that's meant only for running when you're doing lunges and wall balls and pushing a sled and pulling a sled and farmer carrying where you're putting
Yeah.
excess load on these shoes that they don't get that in testing. They're for running.
Mm.
So what happens to this stuff after that? Is that just, oh, you just add additional miles that you put on the shoe, and once it reaches 300 or 500 or whatever the shoe's recommended mileage is, you toss it out?
Yeah. Yeah. It all depends on trying as many shoes out, I guess, and trying to figure out what best serves you and going from there.
Nice. All right. So real quick, guys, before we get on to the next thing we're going to talk about, if you get the opportunity to, or if you can, if you're liking our podcast, or even if you're not, if you can, if you're on Apple Podcasts, go to those three little dots in the top, go to show, scroll down, and if you can, tap to rate or leave us a review. We'd really appreciate it. If you're on Spotify, it's pretty easy as well. You just hit the three dots in the top and you go to podcast or go to episode, and you can also scroll down on either one of those and leave a review or a rating. And that would really help us out and would help us, reach more people and just grow this sport and this community that we actually really care a lot about. So, speaking of the podcast, I also wanted to bring in what we are thinking of for the future of this podcast. So, before anybody is, well, if anybody's curious, before we started, I had told JK, let's give it 40 episodes. And
Yep.
this is episode number 41. So we had 40 episodes to see what the audience could grow to. And we had our thresholds that we wanted to hit, and we've hit them. So we had ideas for the podcast, but we'd really love to hear from you. If you have any ideas on one, topics you'd like us to cover, if there's any certain types of episodes in the past 40 that you are like, hey, we really liked that format. Like we got great feedback on the PowerPoint episodes where we literally reviewed and broke down the training on the PowerPoints. One of them is our second best episode ever now, right? Next to the women's episode. Obviously, the women's episode was very popular, so we'll do more of those. We did an interview with Mintra, and if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to that before this season. Some ideas we
Yep.
were thinking of for the future is possibly interviewing other coaches. This was an idea that we had had before we started, but we didn't want to do it until we'd been established a little bit. We wanted to interview other coaches and talk to them about their methodology on coaching. So
Yep.
what are these other coaches' methodologies and how do they train their athletes so we can not only learn and broaden our own horizons, but bring that information to you guys. So if you think that's a great idea and you want to see that, or if you think, no, don't do any of that, just do what it is, just let us know. We'd be very curious to hear about it.
Yep. Exactly. And we want to give you guys the most comprehensive and best coaching listen that you can get out there. So we want to understand what you guys would like. And if you'd like, as Anthony said, different perspectives, um, different coaches, different people on, just let us know. And just on that, we just in Vegas a couple of weeks ago, it was great to hear from a lot of you guys face to face how much you guys are enjoying the podcast, and um, yeah, we'd love to keep going with it and make it even better for you.
Absolutely. And really that's it, guys. We're on here to serve you and serve the community, really. So really
Yeah,
would appreciate any feedback you have, positive or negative. We can take constructive criticism. So
yeah,
on that though, we got quite a few comments and reviews on the last few episodes, and I just wanted to read. Actually, I'm going to read all. I have four of them here. I'm going to read all four of them.
cool.
It's not all of them. Some of the other comments were just like thumbs ups and fires and
Yeah,
comments the similar to ones we've read before. But I liked these four, and I wanted to not only tell them to you, JK, because I don't think you've seen them, but I wanted to share it with our audience. So some of these are on the YouTube channel, so they can be seen, but others are just commented on episodes, so they can't be. I'm just going to leave the names off, and I'm going to read them. But we appreciate it so much, guys. So from this listener, I absolutely love your podcast. Such great content. And as persons, you both are such feet on the ground people. Have been a part of the hybrid engine pro track since August 2024. And I'm so excited about all the progress I have made in such a short time. Keep up the good work, guys. That one made me feel good, so I wanted to share it.
yeah.
Uh, another comment that we got from the podcast. I believe this might have been a rating. Great podcast. Learn something from every episode, and two great examples of class acts within the hybrid space. Um,
Oh,
and guys, actually, the main reason I'm sharing these is not to like talk about our podcast, but I'm actually sharing them with JK for the first time. And
yeah,
I want him to hear the positivity that we've been receiving. So I don't mean to like pump up ourselves, but it's really fulfilling to be able to hear
yeah,
some stuff like this
yeah,
because our main goal, obviously, is to uh, bring that positivity to the community and
yeah.
to improve the community however we can. So this is a YouTube comment. Well done, JK and Anthony, for pro doubles. I watched the live until it got dropped off since lunges. When can we watch Lauren and Anthony do a mixed doubles?
Ooh.
So,
When will that happen, Anthony?
well, I'd considered Houston, but it's not going to be Houston, just because Lauren's got a lot of big races before then, and I'm not going to put her through that. That would probably be more detrimental than would beneficial to training. And so I'm not going to do that. But maybe in the fall, if we get together, I, I mean, JK, it was really fun doing a doubles with you, but there's nobody in the world I'd rather do a doubles with than Lauren. So I will make it happen.
That's okay.
It's
Yeah,
just not
yeah, of
yet.
course.
Um, Speaking of, I don't think I told you this yet, JK. I got the invite for us to go to Worlds. I'm gonna
Yeah,
accept it.
very good.
You and I are not going to Worlds together because you're gonna run Elite 15 doubles.
Yeah,
So I am going to
hopefully.
find a different partner. And I don't know how I'm gonna find that different partner yet, if I'm gonna ask somebody or what, but I am gonna look for a different partner, preferably
Okay,
somebody that's faster than me.
okay, okay, cool.
Because I really
Yeah,
liked being dragged along on the run.
right. That's so interesting. Who, just quickly, what day will your doubles be? What day will
So
that
at
doubles
World
be?
Championships, doubles is Saturday. So all the doubles races will
Saturday.
be Saturday. So if anybody's curious,
Okay,
World Championships, Elite 15 individual is Thursday night. This is the preliminary schedule they put out, so it's not set in stone yet. I'm sure it might change, but Thursday night was individual Elite 15. Friday, all day is the individual pro races, all age
yeah,
groups. Saturday is all doubles, culminating in the Elite 15 doubles that night. And
yeah.
Sunday is all relays, culminating in the Worlds relay
Right.
that night.
Okay.
So, have they asked you yet? Are you
Fantastic.
going to be are you going to be the captain of Australia, or are they going to
Oh,
give it to Joanna?
Who knows? Actually, I've got no idea who like how or who ends up ma making that call. So um, I'm assuming we'll find. Oh, we probably won't find out for a few months,
Yeah,
to be
probably won't find
honest.
out until after the LCQ, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Do you have any idea if you are captain, who would you put on your team?
Right now, obviously myself and Joanna would take two spots, and then
Does Jess
after that,
Petro count as Australian, even though she's living in US now?
of course she's Aussie. Of course,
Okay.
no, she's Aussie through and through. So she would definitely be a candidate. John Wynn would obviously be a candidate. I'll be honest with you, Tia Claire Toomey and James Newbury would be candidates as well. So yeah, well. I wonder if it'll be the same structure as last year because for the listeners, last year the captain of each um, country decided on who was going to race. Like they decided the team, so um, it'll be a little bit of a yeah different experience this year.
Nice. Okay, I'm gonna read this one last comment here that was on the YouTube. Well done. Oh, wait. Was that it? Did I read them all? No, here's the last one.
Got one more.
Awesome podcast as always. Fire, fire. And major congrats to both Anthony and JK on your pro men's first place finish. Also, congrats to Lauren on her Elite 15 win and world record on the women's relay. Again, I can't say enough good things about obviously my wife. I thought it was spectacular the way she ran Las Vegas. Uh, Full circle moment, really. If anybody doesn't know, like for our family, that was really big. Lauren and I met in Las Vegas. We lived here for like I've lived here for over 20 years in Las Vegas combined throughout my life. And Lauren, we met in Las Vegas. Her and I lived here for 4 years together before we moved to Salt Lake, where we lived for about 4 years. And then during that time, we had come back to Vegas for uh, the World Championships when it was here, and she was 8 months pregnant. She got to run with Lily in the World Championships while 8 months pregnant, took ninth, and then full circle coming back here for an Elite 15 major where Lily got to watch her and not just watch her, but they actually allowed Lily up on the stage at the end of the race. Was very, very special for us and our family.
Yeah, I
Um,
bet. Yeah,
to be able to see that and to be able to for Lily to be able to see her mommy race. And maybe she's not taking it in completely right now, but in the future, I definitely plan to show her these past races.
yeah,
Like, look at what your mommy
that's so
did,
special.
um, and really just role model. And then that women's relay, like I can't even explain how amazing that was to watch.
Mm.
52-53, just
Smashed it.
spectacular. They're running, their station work, like I don't know if people know, like Lauren was holding a 150 on the ski erg, uh, and she
Wow.
talked about nearly vomiting afterwards, which also
Yeah.
she talked about that on a podcast. I'm going to plug um, her recent interview on Hybrid Fitness Media was amazing. And if you
Mm.
guys want to go listen to that, I would definitely go take a look at that interview. We've posted it to our stories, but you can also find it on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Um, I just plug that because she's my wife and she's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that women's relay was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, it was. I know we spoke about this last episode, didn't we? About how we were on the course when it was happening, and they were hooking. They were absolutely amazing. So so yeah, what will they do the relay in like the World Champs, Anthony?
Uh, Probably not because they're all different countries.
Yeah, and then
So
they'll.
I don't know how they're going to pick which countries to do it. I know
Oh yeah,
that you remember
true.
last year, America only got one, even though they could probably have put together two really good teams.
Mm.
So we'll see. I know that doubles, Lauren squared team. So Lauren Weeks
Yeah.
and Lauren Griffith will be going,
Yeah, yeah,
and also Zara and Kate will be on a doubles team. So Zara and
that's
Kate
right.
won doubles world championship last year. Lauren and Lauren hold the women's doubles world record. So they're all racing pro
Yeah,
doubles. It's going to be fast. It's going to be quick.
that'll be exciting, actually. It'll be a great
There's
race.
some really good men's teams in the Elite 15 doubles, but I think the women's teams are pretty stacked. Like you got Linda
Yeah,
and Viola as well. You got,
yeah,
I think Yana and Seka are doing it together.
yeah,
Um, there are so many good women's doubles teams in the Elite
yeah.
15.
It's exciting that that's happening, actually. Um, and there's going to be some, yeah, the Houston race that we're both going to be there for, and myself and Jake Dearden racing, and then Lauren and Lauren racing. That's going to be a hoot as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some
fun.
other teams there that, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, at least three of the female and three of the male teams at that race are going to be ending up at the World Championships. So
exactly.
there's going to be some good
Really
talent.
exciting. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, JK, I know we kind of got to close this out for your time. So is there anything you want to add?
No, just listeners, thank you so much once again. And as we just discussed, please let us know your thoughts and your I guess ideas or feedback on how we can make this even bigger and better. Because without you guys, this wouldn't be a podcast. So thank you so much. And what 41 episodes, um, 41 episodes, and to tomorrow, the 15th of Feb, is actually the day that we started working together. Sorry, is a year since we started working
Yep.
together.
The first day
Uh,
programmed for JK, I went back and looked, was
yeah,
February 15th, 2024.
yeah, which is pretty crazy in my eyes, Anthony, because um oh, I don't have to really say a lot here, but like I feel like it's just started, and it has been a year, which is like a long time, but it's really not either. So yeah, exciting stuff to come.
Yeah, awesome things. So, guys, if you want to get in contact with us, you can find me at the Hybrid Engine or at a Wild Parasini on Instagram, or you can message our YouTube channel, leave a comment, leave a review. I get those, I read them. And JK, how about yourself?
JK dot James Kelly on Instagram. You'll find everything there. You'll find our new proven 8 week cycle that has just launched as well. So go check that out. Um, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. If you'd like to get in contact with James Kelly to seek out some coaching or for general questions and inquiries, please go to Instagram and find him at jk.jameskelly. Or you can find him and Georgie Vesley on YouTube at James Kelly and Georgie Vesley. If you'd like to contact Anthony or seek out programming or coaching questions from the Hybrid Engine, please go to Instagram at the Hybrid Engine or at a Wild Parasini. Thank you again. Have a great day.